be discussing an important topic, how to navigate religious identity at work. Our office is grateful to all the religious leaders at UMD for all their contributions on campus, including this presentation. Their photos and contact information are on this slide, so please feel free to be in touch with them with any questions that you have. The first thing we want to explain is why we should discuss religion at work at all. The Harvard Business Review says more than 80% of the world claims some sort of religious affiliation. Leaders are increasingly concerned about how to best handle expressions of faith by their employees. And a publication in Sage Journal mentions one argument is that religion and modern secular workplace should have no association, while others contend religion has a natural and important inclusion in the workplace simply due to the West's commitment to cultural diversity and pluralism, together with the importance the West has placed on the concept of hospitality and inclusion, which has been supported through anti-discrimination laws. Therefore, the reality that religion is a public issue and influences the workplace in a variety of ways today should be significant to everybody, as ultimately it will affect everyone. So questions about religion at work are likely to come up. That's why we want to begin the conversation with your legal rights. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Title VII prohibits federal agencies from discriminating against employees or applicants for employment because of their religious beliefs in hiring, firing, and other terms and conditions of employment. Title VII requires federal agencies, upon notice of a request, to reasonably accommodate employees whose sincerely held religious beliefs, practices, or observances conflict with work requirements unless the accommodation would create an undue hardship. And that is a definition straight from the U.S. Department of Labor. So some categories and things to consider when thinking about your religious identity at work are disclosing your faith, how to handle daily prayer, holiday leave, dress code, vaccinations, ethics, values, and morals, how to combat discrimination or harassment, and how to advocate for religious tolerance. As you consider employment and research companies during your job search, we recommend evaluating companies for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here are some ideas for how to accomplish that. You can look for the diversity statement on the company's website. If you can't find one, that's a sign that diversity inclusion is not a priority to this company. A meager or minimal statement may also indicate that. So when you read a company's diversity statement, notice how you feel about it. Does it sound genuine or generic? Is the company offering any proof that diversity matters to them? You can also review the leadership on the company's website. Do you see a diverse team? And then look for the company's employees on LinkedIn. Do you see representations of diversity? You can also check to see if the employer advertises positions and recruits at academic conferences or student career fairs that are intended for diverse students. And you can also search for alumni working at the company on Terrapins Connect and reach out to anyone that indicates that they can help you in regards to workplace issues. There are more ideas under the Evaluate Companies for Diversity and Inclusion tab on our diversity inclusion webpage, eng.umd.edu/careers/students/diversity. Now we'll dig into some specific questions and answers. After reviewing the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC's website, we identified a few common questions this presentation can address. Religious affiliation, do I have to prove that? Absolutely no proof is required. When should I discuss accommodations with a prospective employer? During the interview or once I have a job? So Rabbi Bachman mentions that students ask this all the time. While Rabbi Bachman suggests discussing this right away, it depends on your comfort level. It is appropriate to also wait until you have an offer. If you are worried about having enough leave to cover holidays that you need to observe or weekly observances for which you have to leave early, or interrupt your day, we recommend working closely with your supervisor. You want to provide your leadership with advance notice of the time accommodations you'll need and know the busy seasons in your field so you can think ahead and be sure to work with your team to find a schedule that works for everyone. If you are wondering if, a job says you have to be clean shaven and that goes against your religious beliefs, how do you request for an accommodation? You can refer to Title VII and request that accommodation, as that would not cause undue hardship to a company. More questions are answered by Imam Tarif Shraim on the next 2 slides. So, what should I do if my supervisor asked me to remove my religiously mandated head covering, turban, hijab, because it makes my coworkers, quote, uncomfortable? You should definitely ask your supervisor or HR professional for a religious accommodation to wear your head covering at work. Your supervisor has that legal obligation to grant your request if it doesn't impose a burden or undue hardship under Title VII, and claiming that your coworkers might be upset or uncomfortable is not undue hardship. As a practicing Muslim, if you're keen to attend Friday prayers in early afternoon, what should you do if your supervisor is preventing you from doing that? You can try and have a conversation with your supervisor, or if necessary, your HR manager, for permission to attend the prayers. By law, if the employer's workplace policies interfere with its employees' religious practices, an employee can ask for reasonable accommodation, which means a change in workplace policy to let you engage in religious practice, again, unless that undue hardship piece is there. So try to work closely to find an appropriate solution. And lastly, what should I do if a colleague uses name calling or directs at me other religious derogatory or hostile remarks? So first, speak directly to your colleague and ask them to stop the behavior. If that doesn't work, you can begin to document the incidents, that current one or future ones, by recording the time, date, and place and nature of the abusive behavior. And you would then talk to your supervisor or HR about the incident or incidents and follow the department's policies for reporting harassment. And now a video message from Hoda Mahmoudi, Baha'i Chair for World Peace, which we thank her for so much.
I would like to thank the Engineering Career Services Q+A for organizing this very important series. I think we're very fortunate to have a series like this on how to navigate your religious identity at work, because it is a topic that is less talked about on campuses, and I think it's a very important topic. And we are fortunate, actually, to abide in a society, in a country, with a rich tradition of religious pluralism, perhaps the richest the world has ever known, making a turn from the vast majority of places in the world over the great duration of human history. Those who believe abide with those who do not, or with those who believe in quite different ways. The rampaging religious bloodshed that defined the European continent for half of a millennium, that defined the Middle East for even longer, have never been known here in this country. We stand on a rich tradition of tolerance, of easement and pardon, and on the freedom to not only believe what we wish, but to make our case to others. By saying that, I'm not suggesting that there are not times when there is intolerance, but as a nation, we have had this rich tradition that is actually grounded in laws about religious protection. However one views this, as a gift from God, as an extraordinary human achievement, or some combination of both, this should always be the starting point of religion's consideration in any part of American life. An ontology, almost revolutionary Thanksgiving, should define those who are also free, sometimes for the first time in human history, to not believe anything at all. Surely, with this history, we can find common cause with each other. But this is not to say that the epistemologies of religious practice and its intersection with the workplace do not matter, because they do. Our rich tradition can only be upheld insofar as they enter an effective system of practice and maintenance defined by mutual respect. The practices of sharing an effective and equitable workplace for all must be diligently pursued to allow dignity for all members of the community. The topic of religious identity is especially important when it comes to institutions of higher learning. At the University of Maryland, a rich diversity of ideas, views, cultures, identities, and religions are considered its major strengths. Such diversity is important to the university and to the university's short-term and long-term goals. The topic of religious identity is important because, unfortunately, the reality of religious prejudice continues to fuel sectarianism, intolerance, and even the loss of life. Whether we belong to a faith-based tradition or not, all of us have a responsibility to respect other religious views and others' religious views as well, and even those who possess no religion and no religious view at all. Religious identity within the workplace is linked to both institutions' responsibility in protecting religious rights of its members and to the members' responsibility to securing their own rights and responsibilities. So now I'd like to talk about these two levels of responsibility, one at the institutional level, specifically at the University of Maryland, and one at the individual level. So the first level, at the University of Maryland, one of the university's key strategic principles and goals falls under the heading diversity, equity, and inclusion. This principle states, and I quote here from the university's strategic plan, states that we are strongest when embracing voices, ideas, perspectives, identities, and experiences across our campus. Together, we work toward justice, end quote. Another of Maryland's strategic commitments includes the determination, and here, to invest in people and communities. And the university's strategic plan says that the university seeks to invest in people, their well-being and advancement, and the conditions that support their ability to fully participate and thrive in our community, state, and world. So this important strategic plan has certain goals, and I want to just read you the first goal, the first commitment, strategic commitment, which states that the University of Maryland will lead the nation in living a commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion in all we do. Every member of our community is ensured to have access to safe and inclusive campus communities. And the strategic plan goes on to say that it is intended to introduce every new student, faculty, and staff member to our Terrapin history, traditions, values of diversity and equity, and ongoing efforts to create a more inclusive campus where every member feels they matter and belong. So it's very clear from the strategic plan of the university that this concept of inclusivity, diversity, that this is very much a core value that the campus upholds very highly. So the University of Maryland, both in word and deed, is deeply committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Within this context, individuals at the university who adhere to a faith-based tradition are also a part of a community that promotes the safety and inclusivity of all its members, regardless of their backgrounds which include religious faith. Within our campus community, it is the responsibility of all individuals to uphold the university's values. We can reasonably expect that on most occasions, students, faculty, and staff will be sensitive to religious matters such as holidays, traditions, and daily practices, and that people will familiarize themselves with some of the religions represented on campus. But this may not always be the case. Our institution spells out procedures and practices to follow in such traditions, and our institutions spells out procedures and practices to follow if such traditions are not being respected in a proper way. And those who belong to a faith-based tradition should not shy away from communicating religious requirements with teachers, with supervisors, and others on campus. It is up to the individual who wishes to observe a religious holiday to bring the matter to the attention of those individuals who are responsible for taking that request into consideration. The official University of Maryland religious policy states, and here I quote, "Staff and faculty should make requests for religious accommodations directly to their supervisors. Students should speak with their professors and department chairs as necessary." And the university also says that the Office of Diversity and Inclusion oversees, coordinates, and evaluates the University of Maryland's approaches to social fairness, respect, and campus cohesion. It also manages and tracks implementation of the university's strategic plan for diversity, encourages and supports the efforts of campus units to achieve diversity goals. So you see that at this first level, the University of Maryland has very clear, if you will, laws. It's almost like a legal contract where they uphold the diversity, inclusivity, including people who attend the University of Maryland, their religious beliefs and their religious, accepting their religious traditions and holidays. So that's at the first level, that the institution has a system of principles in place which protect everyone's religious rights. At the second level, and this is more the responsibility of the individual, it's also important to take this matter into consideration. Individuals within the campus community also have a role to play, and this is extremely important. For instance, there may be individuals at the university who are not fully informed concerning other religious traditions, holidays, and the like. They don't know about the other religious traditions. Thus, an important responsibility of those who do have and belong to a faith-based tradition is to communicate such religious traditions to the members of the university community, to not shy away from talking to others about your own religious traditions, your holidays, and other aspects of your religion. In this respect, it is helpful to keep in mind that all religions, large and small in membership, observe certain holidays, commemorate certain events and traditions. Therefore, when requesting time off for a religious purpose, it is important to find opportunities to explain to others who may not be familiar with your religious traditions about the significance and stories behind such traditions. So this is perfectly legitimate to take the time to explain why you have these traditions, what they mean to you. This is an aspect of each of us learning from each other's traditions. Another point to keep in mind is that there may be some people on campus who are simply not familiar with the university's policies regarding religious holidays and traditions. This is when an individual requesting a religious accommodation should point out to his or her supervisor or teacher that the university does indeed have particular policies in place. The legitimacy of a request and the structures that our institution has in place should ease any anxiety that anyone, any student or staff or faculty, anyone at the university has about requesting religious accommodation. And finally, it is critical to remember that upholding one's religious identity and therefore one's religious observances is every individual's right. All individuals of conscience, including those who don't subscribe to any religion, are accorded the full protection and dignity and consideration. Flexibility, mutual understanding, and respect are called for in regard to this very important topic of how to navigate one's religious belief at the workplace. Thank you very much.
Top tips to know the institutional commitment and take personal responsibility are very helpful at Maryland and beyond. Some inclusive practices as a final takeaway. We want you to know that whether you're a staff member or team leader, there are some ways to build a more inclusive environment or suggest a more inclusive environment be made. Building your and your team's cultural competency and keeping an open mind, providing or advocating for flexible scheduling, providing or advocating for a prayer space, using inclusive language such as happy holidays rather than a particular holiday, asking for dietary needs, and having one-on-one conversations with individuals who can share their needs and preferences with you. This presentation touches on just a few of the questions that might come up around work, so we want to be sure to provide you with further resources. Our website has various resources to help you navigate your career success journey, and here are some additional starting points. All links will be posted below this video. If you have any other questions or need further career navigation assistance, please see us in 1131 Martin Hall or email us at careerengr@umd.edu. Thank you for listening.